From the editors of Cook's Illustrated magazine, it's America's Test Kitchen. With your host, Christopher Kimball. Featuring Test Kitchen chefs Julia Collin-Davison, Bridget Lancaster, Becky Hayes, with Adam Reed in the equipment corner and Jack Bishop in the tasting lab. Discover the secrets of America's foremost food testers and tasters today on America's Test Kitchen. Today on America's Test Kitchen, Becky shows Chris how to make a great vegetable lasagna. Next, Jack challenges Chris to a tasting of whole wheat lasagna noodles. Finally, Brian uncovers the secrets to perfect spaghetti a la limone. That's all right here on America's Test Kitchen. America's Test Kitchen is brought to you by DCS by Fisher & Paykel. America's cooks rely on innovation and culinary precision. DCS by Fisher & Paykel, offering premium indoor and outdoor kitchen appliances. For over 50 years, Miracle-Gro products have helped home chefs grow fresh vegetables and herbs. Miracle-Gro soils and plant foods provide the essential nutrients plants need to grow bountiful produce. Gardening tips are available online at miraclegro.com. By Cooking.com, an online retailer for the kitchen enthusiast. If it's not in your kitchen, try ours. Chateau Saint Michel. Digital wine cellar and pairings can be found online. From our hands to your table. Recipes available at californiaavocado.com. And by Kohler. Diamond Crystal Salt, the gourmet choice. Plum Amazins from Sunsweet.
Nobody can accuse me of not loving my vegetables. In salads and crudité, I like them grilled, poached, roasted, almost any way, even in this great zucchini bread or a slice of carrot cake. But when it comes to meat lasagna, throw out the meat, put in the vegetables. Are you kidding me? That's some horrible idea from the Moosewood cookbook back in the 1970s. Let's go into the kitchen with Becky and let's take a really bad idea from the 1970s and turn out a great vegetable lasagna. You know, once in a while I like to read a sweet email from one of our viewers, especially one who likes me. That's always my favorite mail, folks. Another reason the show is so good is how Christopher often touches his nose just after tasting a really good dish. But here, no, this is the part you're going to laugh at. And the common good respect that Christopher shows his staff at every point while working with them.
Oh, I do like that. Yeah.
So let's turn to more substantive things like vegetable lasagna. Okay, as I just said, vegetable lasagna is like taking the cheese out of cheesecake. My mind's open.
I'm glad you're open-minded.
I am open.
And I know it's true. Veggie lasagna is usually really not worth eating, but this recipe is fantastic. I promise you'll like it just as much as the meat version. We're starting with a tomato sauce. I have 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Our favorite brand is Tutoroso. And this is actually a no-cook sauce. The sauce will cook in the oven when the lasagna bakes, and we actually found that we had a much fresher flavor. So into the tomatoes, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 cloves of garlic, minced, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper flakes. That'll give just the tiniest little bit of heat to the sauce, and a teaspoon of kosher salt. And then the last ingredient is a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh basil. So our tomato sauce is done. When we started developing this recipe, we weren't using a cream sauce, we were just using ricotta cheese, and we found that it was really on the dry side. It wasn't creamy the way that we liked it, and we developed this no-cook Alfredo sauce, and it has cottage cheese in it.
We are going to cook the lasagna at some point, right?
Yes, we will get to.
There will be some cooking here. Okay, I just want to make sure.
So a cup of cottage cheese, and we like the creaminess of cottage cheese in pasta dishes. We've actually used it in baked ziti. We've used it in other lasagnas as well. Cup of heavy cream, 2 garlic cloves minced, 2 cups of grated Parmesan, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, finally a teaspoon of cornstarch, and this will prevent the sauce from breaking. So we'll just whisk that together.
So while Becky's finishing up the white sauce, let's go chat with Guy Crosby, our science editor, to talk a little bit about the science of cornstarch. Okay, Guy, like any lasagna recipe, we have 3 things. We have dairy, we have cheese, and we have acidity, tomatoes. And very often that sauce, when you bake it, it curdles, it separates. And I guess we've decided the cornstarch is going to be the answer, the solution to this problem. So what is cornstarch doing here?
Well, in this recipe, cornstarch is fulfilling 2 functions. The first one that I'll talk to you about, actually I'm going to show you an experiment. It acts as a thickener. So let me show you this experiment first. And I have here 2 flasks that have oil and water in one. The water is blue in the other. And in the other one, that's just this one right here. And in the other one, I've got a little bit of starch, cornstarch, that's been heated up in this water with some oil. Can you see the oil in the blue water? So I'm going to shake these together. Just the same. I'm trying to be equal to these, all right? And we're going to stop. Now, we've made an emulsion, all right? And what we're going to see, and I'm actually going to put these down because it's going to take a little bit of time, but maybe you begin to see it already, that the emulsion, which doesn't have the starch in it, is beginning to separate very, very quickly. The one that has the starch in it, in this hand, has not separated yet. So when I took starch in water and we heat it up, starch is made of granules, and as we heat it up, the granules absorb water, they swell, they get larger, they fill a lot of space in the water so that they start to slow down the movement of the water molecules. And what we say is it's making the water more viscous. Think of it like honey. Honey is a very viscous liquid. It pours very slowly compared to regular water. As soon as we make the water or the sauce more viscous with cornstarch, it slows the movement of fat droplets around so they won't recombine.
Okay, so the cornstarch thickens up the sauce in lasagna, makes it harder for the oil droplets to get back together. I get that. But what about the tomatoes and acidity? What's going on there?
Well, if we take protein, dairy protein, say from the cheese or from the cream, and heat it up in acids like tomatoes and heat, it can curdle the protein. That acid changes the protein so they all combine together and essentially form big lumps, which we see as curdling. So that's the problem. In this case, what happens, the cornstarch or some of the molecules from the granules come out and they coat the protein and they stop them from literally coming together and forming these big clumps.
Okay, so the cornstarch is a twofer. It thickens up the sauce, makes it harder for the oil to get together and separate. And two, it coats the proteins in the dairy and the cheese, for example, which also means you don't get curdling.
Exactly right.
So cornstarch equals perfect vegetable lasagna.
Right.
So let's prepare the vegetables for lasagna. We're using a really classic Italian combination. We're using some summer squash. I have a pound of that diced up, a pound of zucchini diced up, and 1.5 pounds of eggplant. So I'm adding a teaspoon of salt to the eggplant, and we often salt eggplant. The salt helps to draw out all of its juices. So I'm tossing that with the salt, and then I have a plate here with a double layer of coffee filters. Just gonna give it a quick spray with some cooking spray so that the eggplant doesn't stick. So these are going in the microwave on high power for 10 minutes. About halfway through, I'll stop the microwave and give them a stir so that they cook evenly. So I took the eggplant out of the microwave. It was in there for 10 minutes, and you can see it really shrunk down quite a bit, and you can also see that the coffee filters got really wet, so all that moisture is gone.
Well, I want to just show this bigger scale, so we're going to do a little scientific experiment. We have some eggplant, and oddly enough, we put it in a duck press, and we're actually going to press it out. This is used to make a sauce from a roast duck, but I need some help. Going to have a couple people, Dan and Addie, come and help me. They have to actually hold the sides. And now we're going to press down the eggplant and just see how much water comes out. A river of water. This is the first time anyone's used the duck press to press eggplant. So there you go. This is all the liquid that would end up in your super vegetable lasagna.
Yeah, we do not want
let's
that.
get rid of that.
Yeah. Now I have our summer squash and our zucchini. And these have a fair amount of moisture too, but we're going to saute the vegetables now, and a good saute will drive off a lot of that moisture.
Okay.
So now if you give me some medium-high heat, put 2 tablespoons of olive oil into the skillet. So while that heats up, I'm going to mix up a little flavored oil that we'll add to the vegetables right toward the end of cooking. We're going to save this mixture to the end so it has a nice bright flavor. So I have a tablespoon of fresh thyme, a tablespoon of olive oil, and 4 cloves of minced garlic. That a little stir. We're going to saute the vegetables in 2 batches. If we put all of them in the pan at once, they would just steam, and we really want to get some color on them. And I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And we'll saute these until they start to caramelize a little bit. That will take about 7 minutes.
Okay.
So you can see the vegetables got nice and brown. And I'm going to add our thyme garlic mixture that we made earlier. Just half of it. We'll add the other half to the rest of the vegetables. Just want to cook it for about 30 seconds. Ooh, that smells good.
It does smell good.
This adds so much flavor to the vegetables, just this simple step of adding the garlic and the thyme at the last minute. I could eat it just like that.
No, come on. You have the noodles. We got 2 kinds of sauces. What?
Oh, now you're getting excited. Now you want to make this thing. Okay, so those are done. I'll put those aside in a bowl. And then we'll repeat what we just did with the rest of the vegetables. So a teaspoon of olive oil. And I have 11 cups of baby spinach.
A dump truck full of spinach.
Whole lot of spinach. This is going to cook down to very little. So the spinach adds really nice color, obviously, also flavor. This will take about 3 minutes to cook. So you can see that's just about done. It shrunk down considerably. Spinach does have a pretty good amount of water in it. We got rid of a lot of it sauteing, but we're going to drain this on paper towels for a couple minutes just to make sure we're not adding any extra liquid to our lasagna. And now we'll just put it into the bowl with our eggplant and zucchini. So it's time to put this together.
Where's the meat?
We do not need meat for this.
I keep forgetting. Silly me.
So I'm starting by spraying the baking dish with some cooking spray here, just so nothing will stick. So here's our no-cook tomato sauce. Start by putting a cup of that in the bottom of the baking dish. Spread that around. And now we're using no-boil noodles. They actually taste a lot like fresh pasta. These really thin. This is Barilla brand. So I'm just shingling those onto the tomato sauce. And now we'll add half of our vegetable mixture. So pretty too, isn't it, with all the colors?
Oh, no, don't go down this pretty thing. This is all about taste. Come on.
Well, you want it to look good too. So there's half of our vegetables. And now I'm adding Kalamata olives. These have a nice salty, briny flavor, and they really punch up the flavor of this dish. This is a half a cup chopped. Half of the olives evenly over the vegetables. And now here's our no-cook Alfredo sauce. We'll add half of that. I'm just spreading this out evenly from edge to edge. And now I have some mozzarella cheese, and so I'm adding a cup of that.
Have you noticed, though, I've seen books of, vegetarian recipes. Everything's got cheese in it.
Yeah.
Because there's no flavor, so they add cheese. There's just massive quantities of cheese. Have you noticed that? Yeah.
This actually has a modest amount of cheese.
Yeah, this isn't too bad.
Okay, so now we'll add another layer of noodles, another cup of tomato sauce, add the rest of our vegetables. Just making sure to spread everything out evenly so that everyone's serving gets a little bit of everything. The rest of the Alfredo sauce, the faux Alfredo sauce.
Well, this is a faux lasagna, so you might as well have faux Alfredo sauce. Come on.
Uh-oh, I walked right into that one. The rest of our Kalamata olives. Another cup of the cheese. Last layer of noodles. The rest of our sauce. And finally, the rest of our cheese. So we're going to cover this with foil. The no-boil noodles need to steam in order to cook, so we want to make sure this is tightly covered. I'm just going to spray the foil with a little bit of cooking spray so it doesn't stick. So this bakes in a 375-degree oven for 35 minutes.
Okay. So meanwhile, I'm going to go visit Jack in the tasting lab. We're going to taste whole wheat lasagna noodles. These days, whole wheat flour is in almost everything from muffins to biscuits to birthday cakes and also, I guess, to pasta. And we've tested whole wheat flour pasta in the past and found it to be, well, really not edible. But I guess these days there have been some improvements. We're back in the test kitchen here with Jack Bishop, who was going to tell me about edible whole wheat pasta.
It's gotten a lot better. Your memories flashing back to, the 1970s of whole wheat pasta being gritty and sour and just plain awful, you need to change your mind. Italian companies in particular, and there are not a lot of them, but there are a couple of them that have figured out how to make whole wheat pasta that is absolutely delicious, has a great texture, that right al dente chew, and there's still some bad samples out there, probably something included here.
Maybe.
But there are some good whole wheat pastas. There's a mix of some that are traditional noodles that you boil and then drain and then put in lasagna, as well as some no-boil noodles. We found some that we thought didn't have much personality at all, some that had too much personality, one that some of our tasters described as like burlap. The winner does come from Italy, and they are custom milling their flour to prevent any rancidity or oxidation of the flour. They're using old-fashioned brass dies to give it the right texture. They're slow drying it, doing all kinds of sort of high-tech things to make whole wheat pasta much better.
Man, you drank the Kool-Aid. You love this
You know
stuff.
what? I'm totally with you. I used to think whole wheat pasta was just awful and something that you didn't want to use. And now I'm using a lot of the whole wheat pastas at home when I make spaghetti or penne. And these lasagnas, I'm converted as well. So let's see if I've converted you, Chris. Anything you're liking?
Well, people used to live in yurts when I was a hippie. You could use that for the yurt. I mean, for the outside of the yurt. You know what I mean? I mean, it's very, very chewy.
It'll protect you against the elements?
Yeah, anything, down to 20 below. This one seems rather bland.
Okay.
I mean, it tastes like pasta, but innocuous.
Fine.
You know.
All right, but not
The man in the
offensive.
gray flannel suit. There we are.
Okay.
Hippies, man in the gray flannel suit. Hopefully we'll find something here.
And the middle child there?
Pleasantly wheaty.
Okay.
So I would say this is, this is for construction.
Okay.
This one was fine, but didn't have a lot of flavor. This one I thought was pleasantly wheaty. So if I had to pick one, and I do, I would pick that one. So what is this?
That was the loser. The tasters on our panel said the same thing you did. That was the one they described as reminding them of burlap, which is not a good thing in a lasagna noodle. Not a good flavor, not a good texture.
And this was fine, but bland, I thought.
This was the runner-up. Same thing the tasting panel said was it seemed like it tasted like regular pasta, not whole wheat pasta.
Okay.
This was the only no-boil noodle, so if you don't want to have to boil the noodles, as a runner-up, the Delalo is a decent choice, but we didn't think it was the winner, which you got this one right.
Which was?
Bionatore, which is the Italian company, this was the winner of our spaghetti whole wheat tasting, as well as the lasagna noodles. It has a great flavor.
Yeah.
You do have to boil those noodles for 4 minutes and then drain them and then begin the layering process. But we think if you want whole wheat flavor and a good texture, that's your best choice.
So the winner was Bionatore. How much is this a box?
$4 a box.
It's a winner. It's $4 a box, and I'll be going to Jack's house every night now because you cook it all the time, right?
I do.
So the lasagna's out of the oven. I actually took it out about 25 minutes ago. It needs a few minutes just to settle, and if you cut it when it's really hot, it'll spill all over the place. It needs to kind of come together for a few minutes. So I'm sprinkling the lasagna with 2 tablespoons of chopped basil. All right, let me cut you a piece.
God, that actually does look very good.
Oh, I can't wait.
Looks great, smells great. This is by far the best. I've had a couple. I met
Yeah.
some of those gatherings in Vermont in late August.
Right.
Everybody from New York comes up, brings vegetable
Everyone
lasagna.
brings one, yeah. This is the
really
best
good.
one I ever had.
This is excellent.
Yeah.
I do have a suggestion though.
Yeah.
If you go to a potluck dinner, like at one of the churches in Vermont, and you bring it, just say it's meat lasagna.
Yeah.
Just say it's meat or just lasagna. Don't say vegetable lasagna.
No one will miss it.
No one will miss it. This is excellent. So, great vegetable lasagna starts with squash, zucchini, eggplant, which we salted and put in the microwave and cooked briefly just to get some of that excess liquid out, and lots of spinach. You couldn't sneak that by me. And we made 2 non-cooked sauces, an Alfredo sauce and a really nice, quick tomato sauce as well. And then no-boil noodles, layered it all into the oven. And there you have it. A fabulous recipe from America's Test Kitchen to your kitchen. A very simple, delicious version of vegetable lasagna. This is the best one you'll ever eat. So it probably makes sense to talk about lemons before we do pasta al limone. And it turns out, of course, in Italy, why would you use a lemon to make a pasta dish? Well, because they had lemons. In fact, lemons have been in Italy for about 2,000 years during the Roman Empire. 2nd century AD, up in Liguria, the northwest coast, and moved down south of Rome to the Amalfi Coast and eventually to Sicily. In fact, here in the United States, almost all the lemons in the 19th century came from Sicily. So you can make limoncello.
Sure.
You know about that, don't you? I'm sure you know
yeah.
about that. Or you can do a simple pasta dish with cream and lemon, which is what we're about to do right now.
Right. And simple is the key word for this dish. It's a quick weeknight meal. It's probably on the table in about 45 minutes or less. What I've done here is I've started off with 4 quarts of water, 1 pound of pasta, and 1 tablespoon of salt. And the basis for this sauce is we're actually going to use a lot of the pasta cooking water. This contains a lot of starch, so I'm going to reserve 1.5 cups of this up front.
Okay.
And then I'm going to reserve a 1/4 cup just in case it's needed later on, because pasta tends to absorb a little bit of water as it sits. Then we could try this. This is, see if it's al dente. It's perfect.
I thought you were going to put it on your head and see if it stuck.
Well,
Yeah, that's
another show.
Brian's got that option, you know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm just going to drain this pasta and colander in the sink here. I'm going to go back to the stove, and I'm going to reduce the heat down to medium. The whole dish is made in this 1 Dutch oven, so it's pretty simple. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, then about 3 tablespoons of minced shallot, which is about 1 medium shallot. So the shallot's going to go in there with a 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
And we're just going to let that sweat for about 2 minutes just to soften it up. All right, now that the shallot's softened, we're gonna go ahead and add that reserved 1.5 cups of pasta cooking water, along with 1/4 cup of heavy cream. And we're gonna bring that to a simmer, and we're gonna simmer for about 2 minutes. And during that time, it'll reduce by about 1/3. That water contains a lot of starch, and as this reduces, the starch will concentrate, and that really helps to coat the noodles when the sauce is finished. The cream is in there. Cream has a pH of around 6.5. Lemon juice is around 2.5. And when we combined the two, we ended up with a pH somewhere around 4.5. So we took away a lot of the harsh acidity of the lemon juice, and we were left with a lot of the
All right,
straight
so
flavor.
pH, so 6.5 is neutral.
Yeah, just about neutral.
2.5 is very acidic, and we ended up with something that was still acidic, but not as acidic.
That's correct. Okay, so now this is reduced by about 1/3. We're gonna turn off the heat, and now we're ready to add the pasta back to the pot. And if you want to just toss that around to combine it. So now we're going to add 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil.
Okay.
And the olive oil, along with the cream, also help to temper the harshness of the lemon. Then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of lemon zest and 1/4 cup of lemon juice. The lemon zest was also great because it added a lot of the lemony flavor without additional acidity. And 1 ounce of Parmesan cheese. And finally, 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And we're just going to toss that to combine.
That looks good.
Yeah, see how easy this comes together pretty quickly. All right, and once that's all combined, we're just going to put a lid on it. We're going to let it sit for 2 minutes.
So while we're letting it sit, let's talk a little bit about why oil and water don't mix, but why they do mix here. Well, there are 2 reasons. The heavy cream we used has emulsifiers in it, which keeps the droplets of water nice and small so they don't recombine. The other reason is that the starch in the pasta water that Brian talked about, that makes for a thicker sauce. A thicker sauce makes it physically harder for those droplets to get together. So the emulsifiers in cream, the starch in the water, you end up with a combination of water and oil, and in fact, they do mix.
All right, Chris, so this pasta's had a couple minutes to sit and absorb the sauce. You can see that it was a little wet when we put it in there, but now it's really absorbed the sauce. Now we're just gonna finish it with a little bit of basil. I like to stack my basil leaves, just so in a nice neat pile, then give them a little roll. And this is something you wanna do right at the last minute because
It turns black.
right, a sharp knife is important because if you sit there and you pound on it with a dull knife, it really ruptures the cells and it causes the basil to turn black almost immediately.
In case you haven't noticed, Brian's now showing off with your incredibly thin chiffonade, but you are doing an excellent job.
And that's about 2 tablespoons right there. We're just gonna add that. If you wanna just give that a final toss, I'll grab some salt and pepper. All right, so we're gonna add a little bit of the pasta cooking water back in, that 1/4 cup that we reserved in the beginning, just to loosen the pasta up a little bit.
Yeah, and you want the sauce to coat the mouth.
Okay, and we'll finish it with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of Parmesan, and I think we're ready to eat.
Here we go. Boy, that is really good. I've had this recipe a few times. The problem always is it's too much lemon. It's really harsh and it's bitter. And getting the balance just right is actually very difficult to do, yeah?
That's right. It's a simple recipe, but the simple ones are always hardest to pull off. And probably one of the best things about the dish is that it's so quick and easy to make. Came together in about a half an hour or so.
You win the all-time speed record. The land speed record here at America's Test Kitchen. This definitely wins, and it's also really delicious. So the secret to a great spaghetti alla limone is actually balance, but it started with 2 things, the heavy cream, olive oil, and also lemon juice and zest, and a little bit of reserved starch from the pasta water also was nice. Let that pasta sit with the sauce for a couple minutes. Everything melts together. You have a fabulous recipe. So from America's Test Kitchen to your kitchen, a great and very easy, quick recipe for spaghetti alla limone. You can get this recipe and all the recipes from this season of America's Test Kitchen, our tasting results, our testing results, views selected episodes at our site, americastestkitchentv.com, and also follow us on Twitter and also Facebook. This is excellent.
Thanks.
America's Test Kitchen is brought to you by DCS by Fisher & Paykel. America's cooks rely on innovation and culinary precision. DCS by Fisher & Paykel, offering premium indoor and outdoor kitchen appliances.
And by Kohler, inspiring home chefs to create a professional-level kitchen with innovative sinks, faucets, and cook centers. Kohler.
And by Diamond Crystal Salt for the professional chef and those who want to cook like one. Diamond Crystal, the gourmet choice. By Cooking.com, an online retailer for the kitchen enthusiast. If it's not in your kitchen, try ours. By Plum Amazins, diced dried plums from Sunsweet for amazing recipes. By Miracle Grow, the gardener's friend. By California Avocados. And by Chateau San Michel.